She sat quietly in seat 14A reading her book. Nobody knew she was a fighter pilot. Then both engines stopped working. The plane started falling toward the mountains. 185 people were going to die. She walked to the cockpit and helped land the plane. Fighter jets saluted her. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. She was just sitting in seat 14A reading her book quietly. Nobody on that plane knew who she really was. Then both engines died over the mountains. 185 people were about to crash. She walked into the cockpit and helped land the plane. Above them, F-22 fighter jets circled and spoke her call sign over the radio. Viper. Before you read the full story, leave a comment below. What country are you from? Don't forget to subscribe for more incredible true stories. The Boeing 777 was flying smooth at 37,000 feet. Flight 831 from Seattle to Dallas carried 185 passengers and 12 crew members. It was just another Thursday afternoon flight. The kind that happens thousands of times every day across America. Passengers were doing normal things. Some read books. Others slept or watched movies on their screens. Flight attendants pushed carts down the aisles, serving drinks and snacks. Everything felt completely normal. Nobody had any idea what was about to happen. In seat 14A sat a woman named Kate Morrison. She looked to be in her late 20s. She wore simple jeans and a navy blue sweater. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a ponytail. She looked like any other passenger. Maybe a college student heading home. Maybe a young professional traveling for work. Nothing about her suggested anything special. Kate had been traveling for the past 6 hours. She connected through Seattle on her way home to Texas. She felt exhausted but happy. This was her first real vacation in 2 years. She had spent an amazing week hiking in Washington State. Now she just wanted to get home. See her family. Sleep in her own bed. What nobody on that plane knew was the truth about Kate Morrison. Kate Morrison was not just another passenger. Her real name was Captain Kate Viper Morrison. She was one of the Air Force's most elite fighter pilots. She had flown F-16s and F-22 Raptors in combat zones around the world. Her flight log showed over 3,000 hours in the air. Her uniform jacket back home carried a chest full of medals. Medals for valor. Medals for skill. Medals for missions she could never talk about publicly. Her call sign Viper was famous throughout the military aviation community. Pilots at bases across the country knew that name. It belonged to one of the best fighter pilots of her generation. The instructors at Top Gun knew her. The commanders respected her. The young pilots looked up to her. But today she was on leave. She wore civilian clothes. She deliberately did not mention her military background when she boarded the plane. She wanted peace and quiet. She wanted to be just another passenger. Kate had learned over the years that telling people she was a fighter pilot always led to questions. Lots of questions. Especially when they found out she was female. The questions got old fast. So on this flight she stayed quiet. Just another person going home. She was deep into her book when she felt something wrong. The plane shuddered slightly. It was not normal turbulence. Kate's trained instincts immediately recognized something different. The vibration felt mechanical. She looked up from her book, alert but not alarmed yet. Probably just rough air, she thought. The plane steadied. She went back to reading. 5 minutes later it happened again. Stronger this time. The plane shook hard. Then came a loud bang from somewhere toward the back of the aircraft. Passengers gasped. Someone screamed. The seatbelt sign dinged on immediately. The captain's voice came over the intercom. He tried to sound calm, but Kate could hear the tension underneath. Ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing some technical difficulties. Please return to your seats and fasten your seatbelts immediately. Flight attendants, take your seats now. Kate closed her book and fastened her seatbelt. Her mind was already working. That bang was not turbulence. That was mechanical failure. Something on the aircraft had broken. She looked out the window. Her stomach dropped. Smoke was trailing from the left engine. Engine failure. That was serious. But it was manageable if the pilots were good and the other engine kept working. Modern airliners could fly on one engine. It happened sometimes. Kate tried to stay calm. Then the plane started going down. Not the gentle descent of a normal landing approach. This was steep. Nose down. Losing altitude fast. Around her, passengers started screaming. Oxygen masks dropped from the ceiling panels. The cabin filled with panic and terror. People were crying, praying, calling their loved ones on phones. Kate grabbed her oxygen mask and put it on properly. Her military training kept her calm while chaos erupted around her. She listened carefully to the sounds of the aircraft. She felt the angle of descent. She assessed the situation with the cool analysis of someone who had faced death before and survived. They were in serious trouble. The pilots up front were fighting to control the plane. But something was very wrong. The aircraft kept falling. The captain's voice came back on the intercom. This time he was not trying to hide the fear. "This is the captain. We have lost both engines. I repeat, both engines are out. We are declaring an emergency. Brace for impact. Flight attendants, prepare the cabin for emergency landing. Both engines." Kate's blood went cold. A twin-engine failure was catastrophic. Almost impossible. Without engines, the plane was essentially a glider. And a Boeing 777 was a very heavy glider that did not glide well. They were flying over the Rocky Mountains with few suitable landing sites below. The pilots would be desperately looking for anywhere to put the plane down. This was bad. Really bad. Around Kate, passengers were hysterical. The man next to her was frozen in terror. His knuckles were white from gripping the armrest so hard. The woman across the aisle was sobbing uncontrollably. Children were crying. Flight attendants were shouting instructions about brace positions, but many passengers were too panicked to listen. Kate made a decision. She unbuckled her seatbelt and stood up. She grabbed the seat backs for balance against the steep angle of the descending plane. She started making her way toward the front of the aircraft. A flight attendant saw her and rushed over. "Ma'am, you need to sit down immediately," the attendant shouted. Kate looked her directly in the eye. Her voice had the tone of command that made people listen. "I need to talk to the pilots right now. I am a military pilot and I might be able to help." The flight attendant hesitated for only a second. Something in Kate's eyes, her voice, her bearing made the decision. She grabbed the intercom phone and spoke quickly to the cockpit. 10 seconds later, the cockpit door unlocked and opened. Kate moved forward quickly. The cockpit was chaos. Both pilots were working frantically. They tried every procedure they knew. Flipping switches. Pushing buttons. Attempting to restart engines that refused to respond. The instrument panel showed a nightmare scenario. No thrust. Altitude dropping fast. Mountains getting closer. The captain looked up as Kate entered. He was a gray-haired veteran named Mike Sullivan. "Who are you?" "You need to get back to your seat," he shouted over the alarms. Kate spoke fast and clear. "Captain, I am Kate Morrison, United States Air Force Captain, F-22 pilot, 3,000 flight hours including emergency procedures and deadstick landings. I know aircraft systems and I know how to handle emergencies. Tell me what is happening and maybe I can help." Captain Sullivan stared at her for 1 second. Then he made a decision. They were going to crash anyway. What did he have to lose? Both engines failed simultaneously. "We have tried everything. They will not restart. We are a glider now and we are losing altitude fast. We have maybe 3 minutes before we have to put this aircraft down somewhere. And there is nothing but mountains below us." Kate leaned between the seats and scanned the instruments quickly. Altitude. Airspeed. Descent rate. Fuel flow. Hydraulics. Her mind processed everything in seconds. "What caused the dual-engine failure?" she asked sharply. The first officer answered without looking up from his controls. "We do not know. It happened almost simultaneously. We think maybe contaminated fuel or a fuel system failure that cut flow to both engines." Kate thought fast. Her training kicked in. "Have you tried cross-feeding from the auxiliary tanks? Sometimes there is clean fuel there if the main system is contaminated." Captain Sullivan looked at her with surprise. "We have not tried that. Tom, reconfigure the fuel system. Try the AUX tanks." The first officer's hands flew over the controls. Switching valves. Rerouting fuel flow. Seconds ticked by. The altitude counter kept dropping. 8,000 feet. 7,000. 6,000. Mountains were getting very close. Come on, Kate whispered, watching the engine instruments intently. Nothing. The engines remained dead. They had tried her idea and it had not worked. Captain Sullivan was scanning ahead desperately through the windscreen. "There. That valley. It is our only chance. It is not flat, but it is flatter than the mountains around it. I am lining up for emergency landing." Kate looked where he was pointing. She saw a narrow mountain valley with a meadow area. Rocky and uneven, but maybe long enough if they were very lucky. It was their only option. "That is your best bet," Kate confirmed. "Do you want me to handle anything while you focus on flying?" "Yes." "Radio. Tell air traffic control our position and situation. Then get on emergency frequency and broadcast Mayday. If we do not make this landing, at least rescuers will know where to look. Kate grabbed the radio handset. Her voice was calm and clear. She fell into the clipped professional tone of military communications that she had used 1,000 times before. Mayday, mayday, mayday. This is Commercial Flight 831, Boeing 777. Dual engine failure. Attempting emergency landing in Mountain Valley approximately 40 miles northwest of Denver. 197 souls on board. Emergency crews, please respond to these coordinates. She read off their exact position from the GPS display. A voice came back immediately from air traffic control. Flight 831, this is Denver Center. We copy your mayday. Emergency services are being dispatched. What is your current status? We are attempting dead-stick landing in unsuitable terrain. Altitude 2,000 feet and descending. Passengers are braced for impact. Then another voice cut in on the emergency frequency. A different voice. Military and sharp. Flight 831, this is Viper, lead of 2 F-22 Raptors on training exercise in your area. We have visual on your aircraft. Say your current situation. Kate's heart jumped. Fighter jets. Her people. Viper lead, this is Flight 831. We have dual engine failure. No thrust. Attempting emergency landing. We are gliding with approximately 1 minute until touchdown. Captain Sullivan was wrestling with the controls, trying to line up on the valley. The plane was descending fast. Too fast. They were going to overshoot the meadow or come in too steep. Kate could see it happening. She grabbed the captain's shoulder. You are too high and too fast. You need to increase drag. Full flaps, full spoilers, gear down. Everything, you have got to slow us down. The captain nodded. Tom, deploy everything. The first officer pulled levers and pushed buttons. Flaps extended on the wings. Spoilers rose up. Landing gear dropped down with a thunk. The plane shuddered as air resistance increased dramatically. The descent rate accelerated, but their forward speed decreased. Might be enough. The F-22 pilot's voice came back over the radio. Flight 831, we are following your descent. Be advised you are approaching mountainous terrain. Recommend immediate. He stopped. They could all see it was too late for recommendations. The landing was happening right now, whether anyone was ready or not. Kate moved behind the captain's seat and braced herself. But she kept her eyes on the approaching ground. The valley was rushing up at them terrifyingly fast. Rocky terrain. Scattered trees. Uneven ground. This was going to be rough. Really rough. Brace. 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 Captain Sullivan shouted into the cabin intercom. Kate grabbed onto the back of his seat with both hands. Her muscles tensed for impact. The wheels hit first. They slammed into the rocky ground with tremendous force. The landing gear absorbed some of the shock but immediately collapsed under the weight and impact angle. The belly of the plane scraped the ground. The sound was horrible. Metal on rock. Screeching and grinding. The aircraft bounced. Hit again. Skidded sideways. Trees appeared ahead. The left wing clipped them. It tore off with an explosion of debris and noise. The plane spun. Still sliding forward. Throwing up dirt and rocks and vegetation. Kate was thrown against the wall. Her shoulder hit hard. Pain shot through her body, but she held on tight. The cockpit was shaking violently. Everything was noise and chaos. The windscreen cracked into spiderweb patterns. Alarms were blaring continuously. The pilots were fighting the controls, but the plane was no longer really flying. Just crashing in slow motion. Finally, after what felt like forever but was probably only 15 seconds, the aircraft came to a stop. The horrible screeching sound ended. For a moment there was just silence. And the sound of alarms still blaring. Captain Sullivan's hands were shaking on the controls. Is everyone okay? He asked. Kate checked herself. Bruised. Battered. Her shoulder hurt badly. But nothing seemed broken. I am okay, she said. The first officer nodded. I am good. Then Captain Sullivan seemed to remember the passengers behind them. He grabbed the intercom handset. Evacuate. Everyone evacuate the aircraft now. Use emergency exits. Get away from the plane. His voice was hoarse but strong. Kate stood up, wincing at the pain in her shoulder, and opened the cockpit door. The cabin was chaos, but people were moving. Flight attendants were shouting instructions. Opening emergency exits. Deploying inflatable slides. Passengers were helping each other. Moving toward the exits. Amazingly, people were alive and moving. The crash landing had been survivable. Kate moved through the cabin quickly. She helped people. Pulled passengers to their feet. Directed them toward exits. Her military training took over completely. Stay calm. Help others. Complete the mission. An elderly woman was frozen in her seat, too scared to move. Kate took her hand gently. Ma'am, I have got you. We're going to walk together. You are going to be fine. She guided the woman to the nearest exit and helped her down the slide. Outside, passengers were gathering away from the wreckage. Some were crying. Some were in shock. But they were alive. Kate did a quick count. Everyone was getting out. Flight attendants were doing their jobs perfectly. Accounting for passengers. Treating minor injuries. Keeping people calm. Then Kate heard it. The sound she knew better than almost anything else in the world. The roar of fighter jet engines. She looked up. 2 F-22 Raptors were circling overhead, low and slow, assessing the crash site. Her heart swelled with pride and relief. Her people. Her fellow pilots. They had followed the crippled airliner down and were now providing overwatch. One of the F-22s broke formation and made a low pass directly over the crash site. Then the pilot's voice came over the emergency frequency. Kate's radio, still clipped to her belt from the cockpit, picked it up clearly. Flight 831, this is Viper Lead. We have visual on survivors. Count approximately 190 people evacuated from aircraft. Appears all souls survived. Emergency services are inbound. You have about 5 minutes until first responders arrive. Outstanding flying down there. That was one hell of a landing. Kate pulled out the radio and keyed the microphone. Viper Lead, this is ground. Thank you for the overwatch. All passengers and crew are accounted for. We have minor injuries but no critical casualties. Please relay to emergency services that we need transport for approximately 197 people. There was a pause on the radio. Then the F-22 pilot's voice came back, confused. Ground, who is this? Are you military? Kate smiled slightly despite the pain and exhaustion. Viper Lead, this is Captain Kate Morrison, United States Air Force, F-22 qualified. I was a passenger on this flight but assisted in the cockpit during the emergency. Another longer pause. Then the F-22 pilot's voice came back. This time there was clear shock in his tone. Say again. Did you say Kate Morrison? Call sign Viper? Affirmative, Viper Lead. That is me. Viper, this is Captain Jake Wilson. We have met at Nellis Air Force Base. You instructed my weapons school class 2 years ago. I cannot believe you are down there. Are you injured? Negative, Viper Lead. Bruised but operational. Good to hear your voice, Jake. Thanks for following us down. The second F-22 pilot cut in. His voice was full of respect and amazement. Ma'am, this is Viper 2. Did you help land that aircraft? I assisted the commercial pilots, yes. They did the heavy lifting. I just helped with procedures and radio work. Viper Lead came back on the radio. Ma'am, we are going to stay on station until help arrives. And Viper, we are going to tell everyone about this. You saved 185 passengers today. That is going in the history books. By now, Captain Sullivan and First Officer Tom Rodriguez had made their way over to Kate. They had heard the radio conversation. Sullivan looked at her with newfound understanding and respect. You are not just a military pilot. You are a fighter pilot. An F-22 pilot. And they know you by your call sign. Kate shrugged, embarrassed by the attention. It is a small community. We all know each other. The first officer was staring at her in awe. You helped save all these people and you are a combat pilot? Why did you not tell us who you were when you came into the cockpit? It did not matter who I was. Only mattered what I could do to help. Emergency vehicles started arriving. Fire trucks and ambulances making their way up the rough valley terrain. Paramedics rushed forward to treat injuries. News helicopters appeared in the distance. The passengers were being taken care of. Overhead, the 2 F-22s continued circling, standing guard over the crash site like protective angels. Then Viper Lead did something unexpected. He broke from his circular pattern and made another low pass directly over the survivors. As he passed overhead, he tipped his wings. The traditional aviator's gesture of respect. His wingman followed, also tipping his wings in salute. Then both pilots spoke simultaneously over the open frequency. Their voices were broadcast for everyone with a radio to hear. Ladies and gentlemen on the ground, this is Viper Lead and Viper 2. We want you to know that today you were saved by one of the finest pilots America has ever produced. Captain Kate Morrison, call sign Viper, is a warrior and a hero. She has flown combat missions that will never be declassified. She has trained pilots who protect our nation. And today she saved your lives. It is an honor to share the sky with her. Viper, we salute you. The 2 F-22s pulled up into a steep climb. They did a victory roll as they climbed. Then they leveled off and resumed their protective circle overhead. Kate stood there with tears in her eyes. She listened to her fellow pilots honor her over the radio. Around her, passengers who had heard the transmission were looking at her with awe and gratitude. Captain Sullivan put his hand on her shoulder. "You saved us all. Without your help in that cockpit, without your knowledge and your calm, we would have crashed into the mountain. Those 185 passengers are alive because of you." The passengers began to realize who she was. The quiet woman from seat 14A was the reason they were standing here instead of being dead on a mountainside. They started clapping, then cheering, then surrounding her, thanking her, hugging her, crying with gratitude. Kate tried to wave them off. The pilots did the flying. The flight attendants evacuated everyone. I just helped where I could. But an elderly man, the husband of the woman Kate had helped down the slide, shook his head firmly. "Young lady, I heard what those fighter pilots said. I heard them call you a hero. You saved my wife. You saved all of us. Do not you dare try to minimize that." The news helicopters landed nearby. Reporters rushed over with cameras rolling. They had heard the radio transmission too. "Is it true? Are you a fighter pilot? Did you help land this plane?" Kate was exhausted, in pain and overwhelmed, but she gave them a brief statement. "I am an Air Force captain. I happened to be on this flight. When the emergency occurred, I offered my assistance to the flight crew. Captain Sullivan and First Officer Rodriguez did an incredible job landing this aircraft under impossible circumstances. The flight attendants saved lives with their evacuation procedures. I am just glad everyone survived." But the reporters had already heard the full story from passengers. "The pilots say you saved them. The passengers say you were in the cockpit helping. And those F-22 pilots just called you a hero over the radio." Kate looked up at the two fighters still circling overhead, protecting everyone below. "Those pilots up there are my brothers in arms. We are all part of the same team. Today we all did our jobs. That is what matters." Over the next hours, as survivors were transported to hospitals and the crash site was secured, the full story emerged. Kate had provided crucial assistance in the cockpit. She suggested critical procedures. She managed communications with air traffic control and military aircraft. She kept everyone calm under impossible pressure. Her presence had made the difference between a survivable crash and a catastrophic one. The flight data recorder would later confirm that her suggestion to increase drag at exactly the right moment had slowed the plane just enough to make the landing survivable. Without that, they would have hit at a speed that would have killed everyone. Captain Sullivan gave interview after interview praising her. "That woman is the reason I am alive. The reason my first officer is alive. The reason 185 passengers are alive. She walked into my cockpit and became my lifeline. Her knowledge, her skill, her calm under pressure saved us all." The Air Force Public Affairs Office released a statement about Captain Kate Viper Morrison's service record. 15 years of service. Multiple combat deployments to classified locations. Dozens of medals including the Distinguished Flying Cross. Instructor pilot at the Air Force Weapons School. One of only a handful of female F-22 pilots in United States history. Her record was remarkable. But the moment that went viral, that was replayed on every news channel, that became the defining image of the incident, was the audio recording. The audio of those two F-22 pilots speaking her call sign over the radio. Captain Kate Morrison, call sign Viper, is a warrior and a hero. And the video footage of two fighter jets tipping their wings in salute over the crash site. Jake Wilson and his wingman landed at a nearby Air Force base and gave their own interviews to the media. Viper is a legend in the fighter community. The best of the best. When we heard she was on that plane, when we heard she had helped land it, we knew those people were in the best possible hands. She is someone we all aspire to be like. The story spread around the world. Kate spent 2 days helping with the investigation, giving statements to authorities, checking on the passengers she had helped save. Many of them sought her out personally to thank her. The elderly woman hugged her and cried, "You are my angel. God put you on that plane to save us." Kate hugged her back. "I am just a pilot who was in the right place at the right time." But it was more than that. It was years of training. Thousands of hours of flight time. Countless emergencies practiced until they became second nature. Procedures memorized until they were instinct. It was the warrior spirit that refused to give up even when engines failed and mountains loomed ahead. It was the calm under pressure that only came from facing death before and learning how to beat it. 2 weeks later, Kate was back on active duty, flying training missions, instructing new pilots. But she was different now. She had been recognized publicly in a way that most military pilots never are. Her call sign Viper was now known beyond the military community. People recognized her on the street. She received thousands of letters. Letters from the survivors, from their families, from people around the world inspired by her story. Children wrote saying they wanted to be pilots like her. Young women wrote thanking her for showing them what was possible. Veterans wrote saluting her service. And every time she flew now, every time she climbed into an F-22 cockpit and pulled back the stick to climb into the sky, she thought about those 185 passengers. She thought about the moment when everything hung in the balance, when survival seemed impossible, when her training and experience became the difference between life and death. Captain Kate Viper Morrison flew for another decade before retiring from active duty. She trained hundreds of new pilots. She led countless missions. She continued to serve with distinction. But that day over the Rocky Mountains, when she stood up from seat 14A and walked into a dying cockpit to help save nearly 200 lives, that was the day her legend was sealed. And somewhere in ready rooms and squadron spaces across the Air Force, young pilots still hear the story. They hear about the fighter pilot who was on a commercial flight when disaster struck. They hear about how she walked calmly into chaos and helped bring everyone home. And they hear the recording of 2 F-22 pilots saluting her over the radio, speaking her call sign with reverence and respect. Viper. Call sign Viper. A warrior and a hero. She saved 185 passengers that day. Then the F-22s spoke her call sign, and everyone understood what it meant to be a true pilot. A true warrior. A true hero. Sometimes heroes do not wear capes. Sometimes they wear jeans and a sweater and sit quietly in seat 14A, reading a book, waiting for the moment when they are needed most.